Hi, Year 4. Before we broke up from school, we started reading Sky Song. And as Year 14, we thought that you'd really enjoyed reading it, and we'd enjoyed reading it to you. So we thought that we should finish it, and we should finish it together. Most of us got up to chapter 5, and at chapter 5, Flint and Esker were running away from Winterfell Palace, where the Ice Queen had trapped Esker for years, since she had put a terrible curse over all the people of Erkenwald. So on their escape, this is what happened. They emerged from the tunnel, and when Esker eventually plucked up the courage to peek out from the cape and glance over her shoulder, she saw the dark shapes of the tusked guards spreading out over the driftlands in the opposite direction. Relief rinsed through her, and as she slipped back beneath the blanket, she felt her pulse unwind. With every stride the dogs took, she was moving further and further away from the woman who had held her captive for so long. The wooden sled creaked as it rushed over the ice, and the cold air funneling through the cape stiffened the muscles in Urka's face. But for the first time since being locked inside the Ice Queen's music box, Esker smiled. Because she had escaped finally, and the landscape she had watched in silence for so long was now alive all around her. Her heart fluttered at the freedom of it all, and she wiggled her hands in front of her chest. "What are you doing?" Flint hissed. Esker did a little circle with her elbow. "Getting used to my body again." "Oh, don't," Flint spat. "It's distracting. Sit still." Esker stared ahead for a few minutes and tried her best not to be annoying. Then, very quietly, she began tracing her fingers over her arms and legs for a mark from the sky gods that might show that she was cursed. But she found nothing, and so she went back to the very subtly circling her elbows instead. "Snow clouds are gathering," Flint whispered to himself. "Our tracks will be covered by morning." Esker stole a look at the night sky, and as she watched the darkness closing in, she tried to work out whether Flint's words were an opening to a conversation or not. She had no reason to trust him after all. He hadn't planned to rescue her, it had just sort of happened. But without Flint, she'd still be trapped inside. And though she didn't want to irritate him, she was longing to talk to someone after so many months of silence. She had to know more about the Fur and the Feather tribe. Where might they be hiding? Might they bend their rules and offer her shelter and protection? Could she team up with them to fight back against the Ice Queen? And her deepest desire of all, would they know who she really was? She tucked the music box key into her pocket, hoping now that she had the Ice Queen would not be able to use the music box again, for her or anybody else. "Tell me about those hiding from the Ice Queen," Esker said quietly. "That sounds dangerously like a conversation to me," Flint replied, urging his dogs on. There were no fences or roads on the driftlands, at least none that Esker could see beyond the gap in the cape, and the moonlight was almost completely swallowed by the clouds now. But it seemed Flint knew the wide and lonely landscape. Somehow its shapes and rhythms were locked in his skull, and he swerved the sled through a scattering of trees, then down a shallow bank until it skidded out to the frozen river coated in snow. "Please tell me," Esker whispered, "because if you're planning to leave me, I'll need more information, and I need to know how to survive." "Why does the Ice Queen think your voice is so important?" Flint muttered. "It's not like other voices, I'll give you that, but it's feeble all the same, and you don't even know anything." Esker was almost afraid to answer, of the darkness that the Ice Queen said her voice was capable of, but she had the boy's attention now, and she wanted to keep it. "The Ice Queen is feeding on her prisoners' voices." Esker watched the river race beneath the dog's paws, "and if she can swallow every voice in Erkenwald before midnight sunrises, she'll become immortal and will rule this kingdom forever." Esker heard the squeak of mittens tightening around the wooden bar behind her, but when Flint spoke, his voice betrayed no emotion. "What's that got to do with you? Why is your voice any more important than any of the other prisoners?" Esker took a deep breath. "The Ice Queen told me that the Sky Gods placed a curse on my voice to make it capable of terrible things. She promised to help me. She said she would take away my cursed voice and use it to summon the outlawed tribes, then tear down the Sky Gods so that they could never harm Erkenwald ever again." Flint didn't reply. And as Esker listened to the near-silent sound of snow pattering against the cape, she wondered what he was thinking. Could he sense the shame in her voice at the idea that she might be cursed? Was he planning to tip her off the sled and leave her for dead because of it? The silence was broken by a snigger. "No one believes in the Sky Gods or their magic anymore. Not after the Northern Lights stopped and—" Esker saw her chance. "But you still believe. In their magic at least." She paused. "Back at the palace I saw a lot of dark magic. But what if there's another kind of magic out there, one that could be used for good? One that could be harnessed to make secret capes?" She bit her lip. "Because that's what you did, didn't you? You use magic to outwit the Ice Queen. Flint shifted behind her. I can't remember anything about my past, Esker went on. The Ice Queen stole my memories, but I got feelings about things deep, deep in my gut. And somehow I never believed her when she blamed the gods for the tribes hating each other. I reckon that was her doing. She paused. I think the sky gods are still up there and their magic might be something we can trust, after all. Although Flint said nothing, Esker could feel his thoughts wearing close to hers. This was a kingdom that had given up on magic, and yet here on this sled were two people who believed of its power, even if one was too proud to admit it. If the Ice Queen lied about the sky gods, Esker said, then maybe she lied about my voice too. Not about it being important, otherwise she wouldn't have gone to such lengths to steal it, but what if it's not cursed? What if I could use my voice for good? Her words were gathering pace now. I didn't give in to the Ice Queen because I thought that perhaps if I escaped I could somehow use my voice and a little bit of magic to fight back against her and to free all those prisoners. Flint snorted. I've heard powerful voices before, warrior battle cries and chief speeches, but yours, it's odd and unlikely. There's no way it could destroy the Ice Queen. He paused. And, as for using magic, good luck convincing an entire kingdom that it's something they should believe in again. Esker found herself looking at the camouflage cape. If she knew one thing about magic from her time in Winterfang, it was that it was unpredictable, and it required a good deal of faith to get it going in the first place. Not all brilliant ideas start off ordinary and likely, she said. Flint drove on without speaking, but Esker could sense by his silence that her words had hit home, and she let the quiet linger for a while before passing Flint in a different direction. I pieced together the bits about the kingdom's landscape from eavesdropping on the Tusk guards, but what about the children in hiding? Tell me about them. Fine, Flint replied after a while, but only because I can't drive the rest of the journey with Pebble biting me on the ear until I've answered your questions. The fox pup leapt down onto the sled and busied himself between Esker's ankles. The feather tribes are somewhere in the Nevercliffs, Flint began, though I've not seen them since before the battle last summer. We used to share food around campfires if we crossed paths on hunting trips, and once a feather boy lent me a quiver of arrows when my own was swept downriver. But everything changed when the Tusk chief was murdered. He paused. We don't speak to the feather tribe now, and certainly not to the Tusks. Outlaws keep to their own kind. Esker frowned. Then how do you learn new things? We've learnt them already, Flint snapped. But if the feather and fur tribes turn their backs on each other, then you can't swap ideas or make plans together to free the Ice Queen's prisoners. Flint bristled. The fur tribe have made plans. Lots of them. Just not with the feathers. They can't be trusted. Esker watched the dark speed by. The kingdom she had been longing to explore from the music box was nothing like the place she found herself in now. She had been hoping for friends and answers, but here was discord and secrets. It was a bleaker, colder world than the one she had imagined, and she hugged her coat tighter around her. And your parents? Esker asked. Do you believe they're trapped in the ice towers at Winterfang? Flint's voice seemed tighter suddenly. I know my ma is, because every morning I hear the voice trail out over Erkenwald, but my pa... His words faltered. He was the chief of the fur tribe, the best warrior we've ever seen. But the Ice Queen used dark magic to fight them, and he died on the ice during the battle last summer. Flint fell silent, and Pebble scrambled up towards him and pawed at his neck. My brother Tomkin is chief now. Esker nodded. And what will he say when you return without your ma? Flint pulled off the camouflage cape and tossed it onto Esker's lap. The snow-filled night surrounded them, and Esker could make out the dark outlines of trees either side of the river now and further downstream. A waterfall shrouded in ice. Flint stared straight ahead. He doesn't know I left. And even Esker could tell that the conversation had come to an end. The dogs ran on, and as the hours slipped by. Esker felt her eyes begin to close. A sharp nudge from behind jolted her awake. Keep your eyes open, Flint muttered. Close them in this cold, and they'll freeze shut. Esker looked ahead to where the river widened, then turned left. Nestled inside the bend there was a small wooden hut surrounded by trees. The larch trunks it had been made from were shelved with snow, but Esker could make out a door, and Flint guided his dogs onto the riverbank and pulled them to stop before it. Stand on the brake, he ordered. Properly this time. She scurried round to the back of the sled while Flint untied the huskies and tethered them inside a small outhouse to the side of the hut. The dogs need a rest, he said. It's another few hours to the fur tribe hideout, and we're safe distance from Winterfang now. We'll leave again at first light. Esker squinted through the driving snow. You mean you're taking me to see your tribe? The possibility of being welcomed and looked after by others made her heart flutter. She had been abandoned at Winterfang. No one had come forward to rescue her, or even say that they knew her, but now there was an opening, a chance for friendship. Flint shrugged. Yeah, I'm taking you to see my brother, briefly. Then I'm leaving you to fend for yourself. Esca's heart sank. This wasn't a promise of safety after all, but she tried to hide her disappointment. It was a small step in the right direction, and after Winterfang, that counted for everything. She glanced at Flint. You're interested in my voice, aren't you? You think that your brother should know about me. I'm mildly curious, Flint replied. There's a difference, but you'll need to speak to Tomkin first. He's in charge, and if he thinks your voice will help with the battle plans, he will use it. Esca flinched. Your tribe are going to fight the Ice Queen? Flint held his head high. One day, yes. We're not staying at home like last time when our parents made us promise to hide until they returned. He straightened up. And it'll be Tomkin who leads us. He's the best warrior in the tribe now Pa isn't around. Esca bit her lip. You won't win. I know the Ice Queen. It'll take more than spears and shields to force her back. You don't know Tomkin. If anyone can take on the Ice Queen, it's him. Flint hefted his rucksack onto his back and pulled open the door of the hut. Esca stood shivering by the sled. Are you sure it's safe in there? Flint nodded. It's an old Fair Tribe food store. There are lots of them dotted all over Erkenwald, if you know where to look. He disappeared inside with Pebble, and Esca followed nervously, closing the door against the flurries of snow. It was pitch black within. Keep still, Pebble, Flint muttered. I need to find the caribou tallow and the heather so that we can see what's what. Esca squinted in the dark. Can I help? Flint grunted. Esca tried again. Tell me what I'm looking for at least. First rule of the world, know how to make fire. You're looking for a stone dish filled with hardened caribou fat, Flint said, and a wick of heather. There's a plant that grows out on the tundra, in case you don't know. Esca felt her way around the wooden walls, nearly tripping over two large wooden objects tucked into the corners of the hut. Then her palms met with a stone dish set between the objects. Here, she cried. I think it's here. Flint fumbled towards her and then stopped to touch the dish. He rummaged in his pocket and drew out two small rocks, and for several minutes the hut was filled with a quiet scuffling of metal. Then sparks appeared, and he set them down in the heather wick, and within seconds a soft light flickered. The wooden objects Esca had stumbled on were beds laden with blankets, from the furs of snow hares, and Esca looked round to see clumps of moss had been stuffed into the walls to block the cracks in the timber. There was a table beneath the lamp, and above it hooks made from antlers. They sat down on the beds, and Flint turned his anything knife over in his hands. He said nothing, but Esca could tell, when he kicked his boot against his bad leg, and Pebble leapt up into his lap, that he was angry and not returning with his ma. She picked at her nails. I'm sorry we couldn't free your ma. Flint didn't look up. One day I'll repay you for rescuing me from the palace, though. I doubt that very much. Esca glanced at the knife in Flint's hands. The handle was made of bone, and slotted into the hilt was a blue gem which shimmered mischievously. That knife, she said slowly, is built using magic again, just like your cape. She leant forward. You're an inventor, aren't you? Flint's face hardened. I am a warrior like the rest of my tribe. But the more time Esca spent with Flint, the more she felt that he wasn't like the rest of his tribe at all. From what he had said, the Fur tribe didn't believe in Erkenwald's magic, and yet he clearly did. And while none of them seemed keen to welcome strangers, Flint, despite his reservations, had. And to Esca, Flint seemed a strange kind of warrior, and she wondered whether she wasn't the only one who felt like an outsider. Maybe Flint felt different from everyone else too, but his guard was up, and so she offered her next words as a truce. You're a warrior who believes in magic. Isn't it time you stopped talking? Said Flint. He stood up and walked over to the corner of the room, where a spear carved from caribou antler had been stashed, and grabbing it he headed for the door. Get some sleep, he muttered. You look like you need it, and now that light has returned to the kingdom, you won't get long before dawn is up. Where are you going? Flint opened the door. To get food, and I'm going alone. But Esca didn't roll over and go to sleep. She hurried to the wall facing the river, pulled out a clump of moss, and peered through. She watched intently as Flint carved a hole in the iced-up river with the spear, and then sat down beside it, his back against the rush of snow. Esca waited, and though her hands ached from the climb down the palace wall, and her throat burned from speaking after so many months of silence, she did not turn away. She needed to learn the ways of the wild fast, and if there was one thing she was good at, it was watching the world from a distance. Okay, so that was chapter 5. What do you think is going to happen to Esca? Are the tribe going to welcome her back with welcoming arms? I'm not sure. I'll read chapter 6 tomorrow.